Okay, welcome back to another video. Here we've got the Samsung MX-ST90B, something like that. I should probably know the name, but there's so many numbers and letters in what it's like the worst. Samsung and Sony are absolutely awful at naming things. So the name will be in the title. I probably got it wrong. This is like the biggest, the biggest one in the new range that they've just brought out a month or two ago. And yeah, I'm going to be taking you through it. Firstly, starting off with like just the speaker itself. As I walk around it here, it's got some nice lights actually on either side, which is interesting because the previous versions of these didn't really have. Well, I think they had some like glow in the drivers, but nothing like this. And I actually really like these. They're subtle, but they're actually quite nice. You've got like yeah, it's kind of like a triangle shape. So you've got like the two woofers, drivers and tweeters on each side, on each half of the triangle type thing, pointing forwards, and then on the back you've got your like control panel with all your inputs for your microphones and your Bluetooth and your power at the bottom. Obviously this is a mains powered speaker only. There's no no wireless going on here. It's got no battery in it at all, so it has to be plugged in the whole time. And that did used to bother me more than it does now, because I've realised that I actually quite rarely take them out, and now I've got a couple. There's always one you can take out if you needed to, and yeah, it's always nice to have a properly powerful one sitting at home plugged in when you really want to sit down and listen to some proper music. So yeah, it's really not too much of a problem at all. You've got this control panel on top here. You've got, they're not like touch buttons or anything fancy, but yeah, this is probably the hardest thing, moving on quite quickly into probably the biggest flaw in this speaker I find, is that the controls are just useless. Like it's so hard to tell what volume the speaker's at, if that bass mode at the bottom there is on or off. It's almost pretty much impossible. If you press that button, nothing lights up, nothing happens. There is a toggle in the app, which I'll show you a bit later, but you have to go into the app every time you're playing music to check that toggle's on, because if you want the extra bass mode, there's no indicator on the top of the speaker to say, yeah, by the way, the bass is on, or this is what volume you're at, or like literally anything. And it makes it really hard. It's also got well, I'll show you here. So here's the remote that it comes with, which is actually a very unique. I don't think I know of too many of the speakers have remotes with them, and it's actually very cool. So you've got like a power button up the top, which means you can turn it off and on from, well, the other side of the room, which actually is a cool feature, because the Ultimate Ears Hyper Boom could do that with the app. You could turn it on and off from the app, and I thought that was very cool. There aren't really any other speakers where you can turn it on from the app. So it's kind of like on standby the whole time, which is cool. I don't know why this won't focus. You've got a light button at the top left. And again, though, it cycles through about 5 different light settings, which you can see in the app again. But there's a button for it on the top of the speaker, and there's a button on the remote, and there's no indication to what light setting you're in at all. And because they're just cycling through, it's impossible to ever really know what setting you're on. Again, like you can choose your input mode, and then your tempo there, and then there's sound mode. So there's like 5 or 6 sound modes, like party, standard, reggae, hip hop, so these type of things, like depending on what type of music you're listening to. And yes, in the app, when you press the button on the remote, it does give you a little pop-up to tell you what it is, but with this remote, nothing. Like there's no indicator on the speaker that you've even changed mode. So you're almost never going to, well, you're literally never going to know. At least with the lights, you could cycle through to when they're off, and then you're starting the sequence again. And if you know the sequence, then you could kind of count 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm on party now. But with the sound mode, you'll never know what mode you're on. If you want to go to party, it's literally impossible unless you open the app. This remote, there's no point, because you don't know what mode you're on currently. So it's properly pointless, and I don't know how it's got through design like that, frankly, because it's all it needs is like a line of LEDs on the top, like they've already got for the input. Like, but an LED that's lit up on what mode you're on and what light mode you're on, because it's useless, frankly, and it renders half this remote control useless. So you've got some DJ effects there, up and down folder, I guess if you've got like a USB plugged in, and then you've got your normal pause, skip, volume up, down, and then bass mode again. But again, you don't know if that's on or off unless you're in the app. So the remote is an awesome feature, and it's quite a nice remote. But apart from like turning it on and turning the volume on and off, up and down, sorry, and skipping songs, The rest of it is almost useless because you don't actually know what mode you're currently in for any of it. I hope it makes sense, but it's the biggest complaint I have about using the speaker over the last couple of weeks is that it's I yeah that I found this remote. I only ever used it for turning it on, and then after that I had to go and open the same remote on my phone on the app to do anything. So bringing me onto the app, I'll pop the app up on screen now. It's quite a childish looking, like, I don't know, coming from Samsung, I would have expected a better app. It looks like it's been put together in about 10 minutes on like Microsoft Paint or something. But everything seems to work, so there's no complaints there, I guess. At the top right, you can click up on the remote button, and it literally just gives you an on-screen remote, pretty much the same as the physical one. And yeah, when you press bass on this, it says, well, actually, no, my bad. It doesn't on the bass button, but it does on the sound mode. It pops up on screen what sound mode you're in, and when you press the lights, it pops up what light mode you're in. If you want to know if bass mode is on, you have to go out of that, up to settings all the way at the top, and then choose the bass slider, it says bass, extra bass or something. You have to choose that slider on. So you can't even use that button on the remote in the app because it doesn't tell you then either. And then you've got a separate section for lights down the bottom where you can choose what light mode you're in. It does give you names and you can pick, so that's fine. And then you've got a DJ mode as well. But the app's very simple and it almost looks like it's been put together about 10 years ago. But I've had no complaints about it functioning. It does what they said they made it to do. But yeah, I think it needs some work in terms of telling you what you're currently doing. The only thing you do get, back to the speaker, is when you turn the volume up and down, so that tells me it's at half volume. See where the line ends at the end? That's half volume. So if I was to turn it up, you get whatever that means, and then it tells you you're at full. But yeah, it does a lot of like weird animations in between. So if I press it down once, that's what you get. So where the lines end up for literally a split second at the end is the volume you're now on. I don't know why they do a weird animation in the meantime. But then that also means if you hold it, you get whatever that is doing, like telling you the volume's going down, I guess. But you don't know what percentage you're at until you let go and find out, oh, I'm now at 5% and I can't hear it anymore. So it's weird. And it's a vague solution for the volume at least, because it does tell you, but it's very awkward. And yeah, it is. I don't know why they've put that weird animation there. If it was just that the white lines came up and down and you could see them rise and drop as you pressed, then that would be cool. But yeah, that weird animation actually spoils it. So yeah, I think maybe just a little more thought into like what the buttons are actually doing on this would have been good, to be honest. But oh well. Moving on to the sound, obviously that's what we're here for. It's got 1,700 watts of power, according to Samsung. Now we've got to be careful when we get these figures spat at us, because 1,700 watts doesn't equate to loud, good quality music. It just means it's going to be very, very, very bassy, and that this speaker is. I would go as far to say it's actually bassier than the Party Box 1000, which is, if any of you have ever heard that in person, it's a properly bassy thing. But yeah, I think this just about tops it. And yeah, I mean, it depends what you're after in a speaker, I guess, because this isn't as loud as you might expect at all. Like the little Bose one I did, the S1 Pro, the one I did last video, I would say that's actually louder than this. The sound box is definitely louder than this, and it's better quality, to be honest. So yeah, and as well, I said to someone when I picked this up that if Samsung could make a speaker pretty much out of the bat, because they're not big speaker makers, as we know, they haven't, they do TVs, phones, fridges. They're not purely speaker makers. So if they could make a speaker that's better than a JBL Party Box thing when that's all they do, I'd be worried. So I'm glad in a way that they can't, because this isn't a bad speaker by any means, but for the price, it is, if you see what I mean. You pick this up for exactly the same price, I believe, at the moment. There is a little cashback deal, but we're ignoring that. It's the same price as the Party Box 1000, and it's a bit bassier, but the overall sound is not as loud and not as clear as that. And the lights are not as good, and the controls are not as good, and the app is not as good. And it's not JBL. But yeah, so I've kind of spoiled the sound test now, I guess, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then in a video after this, I'm going to do it compared to the soundbox because I think that would be a good kind of like benchmark, seeing as they're about the same price, but the soundbox is a very different sound experience. So it'd be interesting to compare the two next to each other. But yeah, I'm just going to start a sound test now with this. We're going to have it on, well, let's have a look, shall we? About that much volume will do. That might be 70, might be 75, might be 80, who knows. But yeah, so we're going to have it on that. And we're going to play Everything by Diamond Eyes as we always do. And I will, yeah, I'll speak to you about the sound afterwards.
Broken alone, I feel the rain crashing down all around this empty town. I'm searching for the lost and found, but you don't care, you're unaware. Keep moving like the scars aren't even there. It's in the air like a blazing flare. Just stare 'cause the flames will burn us. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. Kiss your head when you cried for me. Hold your hand while the pain was over. Give you all by the rolling sea. You meant the world to me. Shadows in the atmosphere, trying to stratosphere. Yeah. I prayed for you and kept you near in hopes you chase away my fears. I'm on my own, you made it so, and now I'm chasing nightmares through you. Through the great big leaves, laugh at you when you laugh at me. Hope for us because I believe.
Okay, so now we've heard that, you can maybe hear what I mean. I'll probably do a comparison against the Party Box 1000 as well, but I think, to be honest, they would sound quite similar on here, because the mic can really only detect so much until it just blows up. So, you know, I mean, that was very much at the limit of what we could really capture properly. But yeah, it's honestly not bad at all. And the lights are quite cool. I don't actually know what mode the lights were in there. I think they were probably in ambient or maybe party, who knows. But yeah, the lights are quite cool. They're quite different. To just have bars down the side that kind of segregate colours like they are at the moment, it's just quite cool. And the sound is definitely not bad. That's not what I'm trying to get across here. But this is a review, and for the money, there are better things out there. But you know, if you want a massive bass machine that plays you pretty decent sound as well, then yeah, this is probably your best pick, to be fair, because the bass on this is insane. But for most people, I think you want more of a balanced. I mean, the Party Box 1000 is much more balanced, but still is a bass machine. See what I mean? So yeah, it depends. It depends what you're into, but it's not a bad speaker at all, and it has actually surprised me. I expected it to be worse than it is, almost, just because it's Samsung and they don't make party speakers. But yeah, it has surprised me in a good way. And yeah, I hope this video has been useful for some people looking to buy this. If you could get it on a sale, maybe a couple hundred more, then I would say go for it. But at the price it stands at the moment, I would say there are better things out there. So if you've got any questions, pop them down in the comments. Otherwise, thank you for watching.